The organ music rolls through the vaulted ceiling of St. Mark's like a low tide of grief, swallowing every whisper until only the echo of it hangs above the pews. Mourners in black fill the long wooden benches, heads bowed, hands folded, eyes fixed on the closed mahogany casket at the front of the church. A huge framed photograph of Evan Walker smiles down from the altar, capturing him mid-laugh on some long-gone summer day, shirt sleeves rolled, eyes bright and careless. Today those eyes are gone forever, at least that is what everyone has been told. Sierra Walker sits in the front row, back straight, spine as rigid as the polished wood beneath her, fingers locked so tightly around the folded police report in her lap that the pages crumple. Black lace clings to her shoulders, falling over her long dark hair, hiding the tremor in her jaw as the priest drones on about mercy, faith, and the mystery of fate. She hears none of it. All Sierra can hear is the crunch of metal, and the shriek of twisted tires that play on loop inside her skull, a sound she has never actually heard, but that she imagines for herself every sleepless night. Her throat burns as if she has swallowed fire. Her heart is raw, flayed by grief and something much sharper, something that looks like rage when it stares out through her eyes. Her Uncle Victor sits beside her, a handkerchief pressed to the corner of his eye as if he might cry, though his gaze keeps sliding toward the front like a man checking a watch he is not wearing. He is immaculate in black, silver hair combed back, cufflinks gleaming, the perfect image of the grieving brother, who will now shoulder the burden of their family empire. Sierra does not look at him. Her nails bite into her palm as her eyes drop to the report again, to the neat printed words that have rewired her world. Vehicle systems compromised by remote access. Evidence of malicious code traced to an external source. Primary suspect identified by digital signature as Ghost, alias for hacker Cade Rain. The name is scorched into her mind. Cade Rain. Ghost. The man who turned her brother's car into a coffin. The man who is responsible for the empty space beside her, and the hollow ache inside her chest. The priest finishes his eulogy, and the congregation murmurs amen as the choir begins a soft hymn. Sierra rises on legs that feel like glass and walks to the podium, the rustle of her dress loud in the heavy silence. She looks out at the sea of faces, shareholders and board members and old family friends, their sympathy like a fog she cannot breathe through. She grips the edge of the podium. Her voice is steady, cold. "Thank you for coming to say goodbye to my brother." The words scrape through her throat. He was more than a name on a board, more than numbers on a balance sheet. She glances at Victor, catching the faint twitch of his jaw. He was the best part of this family, and someone took him from us. Her hand tightens over the reports so hard that her knuckles whiten. The police have identified a suspect, she says. A hacker who invaded our systems, who turned my brother's car into a weapon. Her heart spikes, breath hitching, but she does not look away. His name is Cade Rain. The name lands in the church like a stone thrown through glass. There are whispers, shifting bodies, heads turning as if the man might be standing among them. Sierra sees Victor's eyes narrow with calculated satisfaction. He wants this anger, she realizes. He wants it aimed where he has pointed it. She is about to continue when the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church swing open with a groan that slices through the quiet. Sunlight spears in, cutting a bright wound across the dim interior. A tall figure steps into the doorway, outlined by the light, black clothes sharp against the glow. The whispers turn into an audible ripple as people twist in their seats. Sierra looks up, heart punching her ribs. The man walks down the central aisle, slow and deliberate, like someone stepping into a courtroom where his fate has already been sealed. A fitted black shirt stretches over lean muscle, black gloves curve over long fingers, dark hair pushed back from a face too controlled to be innocent. She has seen his photo in the police file. Cade Rain. Ghost. The man who has the audacity to come to her brother's funeral. Her chest goes cold. In his left hand he holds a small bouquet of white roses, petals pristine against the shadow of his clothes. White roses. Evan's favorite. It feels like a slap. Sierra steps away from the podium, as if pulled by a thread. She moves down from the altar, down the steps, her heels clicking on the marble floor, each step throwing sparks under her skin. The closer she gets, the more she can see him, the faint cut on his lip, the bruised shadow under one eye like he has not slept in days. His gaze flicks once to the casket, then rises to her. For a moment, the world narrows to the space between them. She smells incense and dying flowers and the faint scent of rain clinging to his clothes. Her grief lashes into something sharp. She reaches out and slaps the roses from his hand. They hit the marble with a soft ugly sound, petals scattering around her brother's name etched on the brass plaque. "How dare you," she spits. Her voice rings all the way to the stained glass windows. "You killed him and you come here with flowers like you are grieving." Cade's jaw tenses. His eyes, a clear gray with some unknowable storm behind them, flicker with something like pain, gone almost before she can see it. He does not defend himself. He does not raise his hands. He simply stands there as if braced against an invisible impact. Victor rises from the front row, a picture of outraged righteousness. "Sierra, do you know who that is?" he says in a carrying voice. "That is the man the police told us about." He stabs a finger at Cade like a prosecutor. "He is Ghost, the hacker who broke into our network and sabotaged Evan's car." Murmurs surge again, a low tide of condemnation. Sierra's heart is pounding so hard that she feels it in her fingertips. She stares up at Cade. At the relaxed shoulders that look forced. At the stillness that feels like a man on the edge of collapse. "He was my brother," she says, every word carved from broken glass. "He was everything I had, and you took him away." Her voice cracks, and the sound humiliates her, but she cannot stop. "I swear, Cade Rain, I will make you pay for what you did." For a heartbeat, something raw flashes in his eyes, a fracture in that blank expression. His throat works as if words fight their way up, then he swallows them back down. When he finally speaks, his voice is low and rough. "Do not do this," he says. "Do not make yourself a promise you cannot keep." Sierra wants to scream. At him, at God, at the entire indifferent sky. Instead she turns away, blinking back the burn behind her eyes, and walks back to the altar with her spine straight, and her grief welded to fury. Cade stands alone in the aisle, surrounded by eyes filled with suspicion and disgust. Victor steps up beside Sierra again, squeezing her shoulder with a grip that feels like a claim. "You were very brave," he murmurs, just loud enough for the nearest pews to hear. "Your father would be proud." Sierra does not answer. She stares at the casket and thinks of every late night she and Evan spent on the balcony talking about futures they would never have. She stares at the roses scattered on the floor, petals bruised and broken. Behind her, Cade bends to pick them up. His gloved fingers shake once then go still. He lays the flowers gently at the foot of the altar, eyes lingering on the photograph of Evan, then on Sierra's rigid shoulders. There is 1,000 things he could say. He says none of them. He turns and walks back up the aisle, the word murderer clinging to his back like a shadow he cannot peel away. Sierra watches him go, her vow ringing louder than the hymn, louder than the priest, louder than the faint sound of a heart she no longer wishes she possessed. She has buried her brother today. She buries her mercy with him. The only thing she has left is the promise she made in front of his coffin. She will destroy Cade Rain, even if it destroys her. The neon sign above the club entrance flickers in broken pink, casting the alley in artificial twilight. Bass vibrates through the brick walls, a steady pulse that syncs with Sierra's racing heart. She has never been in this part of the city after midnight, never ducked into shadowed alleys, where the streetlights feel optional, and the air smells like rain and stale smoke. Tonight she walks into the dark willingly. She pulls her coat tighter around her dress and steps past the line that curls along the sidewalk. A bored bouncer glances up, then straightens when he recognizes her face. "Miss Walker," he says. "This is not really your scene." "It is tonight," Sierra answers. Her smile is sharp. He hesitates, then nods and unhooks the velvet rope. Inside, the club is a storm of color and sound. Strobe lights cut across the dance floor, flashing over bodies packed too tightly together. The air hums with music, laughter, and the metallic clink of glass against glass. Sierra slides through it like a blade, every step calculated, every movement deliberate. She has done her research. For weeks she has traced Cade's online trail, the ghost prints he leaves in code, and encrypted chat logs. He is careful, but not omniscient. Even ghosts need human habits. Even ghosts need a place to breathe when the screens go dark. One of those places is here. A corner booth with a broken light bulb above it, in a club whose owner owes a quiet debt to an anonymous hacker, who once erased a file that should never have existed. Sierra spots him before he sees her. He sits in the shadows, a glass of something dark cradled in one hand, his other arm stretched along the back of the booth. The glow from someone else's phone moves briefly across his face, catching the tired set of his mouth, the way his eyes scan the crowd out of habit rather than interest. He looks older than 26 tonight. He looks like a man who has been carrying a weight that keeps gaining mass, while everyone else insists it does not exist. Sierra swallows, throat tight. She has rehearsed this moment 100 times in the mirror, practiced her smile until it fit like a mask instead of a wound. She orders a drink she will not finish, just to have something to hold, then moves toward his table. She times it perfectly, stepping into his path just as he rises to leave. Her foot catches on the uneven floor. She stumbles, the liquid in her glass sloshing over the rim. His hand shoots out, fingers closing around her elbow, steady and quick. "Careful," he says. His voice is exactly how she remembers it. Low, rough around the edges, threaded with something too complex to be simply calm. Sierra lets a nervous laugh slip out, looking up at him with eyes that she has made deliberately wet. "Guess I should not wear heels to a place like this," she says. "Thank you." She sees the recognition hit him. He knows her. Of course he knows her. His fingers tighten for a fraction of a second, before he releases her. "This is a long way from Park Avenue, Miss Walker," he says. "There's a reason you are slumming it tonight." The disdain in his words should cut, but his gaze is not cruel, only wary. She tilts her head, letting her hair fall in a curtain that softens her face. "Can I not have a night where I am just Sierra?" she asks. "No condolences, no board members asking about my plans for the company, no reporters waiting outside my door." She looks down at her half-empty glass, letting her voice drop. "No one staring at me like I am going to break apart in front of them." When she looks back up, the mask of grief she has worn for weeks is right there on the surface, and for once it is not entirely an act. Cade studies her. The noise of the club swells around them, but for a moment it feels like someone has turned the volume down. He nods toward the empty booth. "Sit," he says. "If you stay in the middle of the floor much longer, half of these guys will try to buy you a drink, and the other half will try to take a photo." She lets him lead her, feeling a small thrill of victory coil under her ribs. She has him where she wants him, close enough to smell the faint scent of soap, and something metallic on his skin, close enough to see the lone white scar that knifes through his left eyebrow. They sit opposite each other, the broken light above them leaving half his face in shadow. He leans back, watching her over the rim of his glass. "So," he says. "Why here?" "Because I needed to forget," she answers. "And because I heard the music was good." The lie slides easily off her tongue. She has spent her whole life learning how to lie politely, how to say the right thing at the right time, how to smile while people carve pieces out of her future. Now she is using those skills on him, and the irony tastes bitter. They talk. At first it is surface level, the kind of small talk two strangers might exchange in a bar where neither wants to give anything real away. She steers the conversation gently, asking about music, about why he likes this place, about why he sits in the shadows instead of at the bar. "Less noise," he says. "Fewer eyes." "Ghosts do not like the spotlight," she says lightly. His gaze sharpens. "Careful," he warns. "That nickname is not exactly public." "I read, remember," she says. "Walker Group owns more servers than some countries." His mouth quirks, half amused, half bitter. "Yeah," he says. "I noticed." There is a moment where she could say it. Where she could throw the police report on the table and accuse him here, in this dark booth that smells like spilled beer and sweat and old regret. Instead she leans in and lets her fingers tremble around her glass. "You were at the funeral," she says softly. "Why?" He looks at her for a long time before he answers. The music shifts to something slower, heavier. The light flickers. "Because I owed him," Cade says. "Because whatever else happened, he did not deserve to be buried alone." The words land in her chest like a stone dropped into a lake. Owed him. What does that even mean? Before she can press, a group of drunk bankers lurch past their booth, one bumping her shoulder. Her glass tips, liquid spilling. The man laughs an apology that is not an apology at all. Cade's expression cools. "Watch it," he says. His voice cuts like a knife. The man looks at him and takes a step back, all false bravado evaporating. "Sorry, man," he mutters, moving on. Cade reaches over, brushing the droplets from the back of her hand with the edge of a napkin. His touch is careful, almost reverent. It makes her breath catch. This is wrong, she thinks. He killed Evan. He is the reason her brother burns behind her eyelids every time she closes her eyes. He is the reason her father drinks too much and her mother has not left bed in days. He is not allowed to be gentle. He is not allowed to look at her like she is something fragile that he might accidentally break. Sierra pulls back, forcing a shaky laugh. "I am making a mess," she says. "I should go home." "Not alone," Cade says. "There are guys outside who would love a photo of you stumbling into the street." The protective edge in his voice makes something twist inside her chest. She swallows it down and turns it into opportunity. "You could walk me out," she says. "Unless you have somewhere else you need to be." He hesitates, then nods. Fine, he says. But you call a car and you do not argue about it. They step into the alley. The night air is cool and damp, carrying the distant hum of traffic from the avenue. Cade stands with his hands in his pockets, scanning the street like he is cataloging exits, threats, escape routes. She pretends to fumble with her phone, while she watches him from the corner of her eye. He looks tired. He looks hunted. He looks like a man who has done something terrible and cannot stop thinking about the people it hurt. Or maybe that is what she wants to see. The car arrives and she climbs in. For a moment, on impulse, she reaches out and catches his wrist. Come upstairs with me, she says. The words rush out before she can second-guess them. His eyes flick to her hand, then to her face. That is a bad idea, he says. Everything about you is a bad idea for me. Then do something reckless, she whispers. Just for tonight. Something cracks in his careful control. He nods once and gets into the car beside her. At her apartment, she drops her keys more clumsily than necessary, laughs more loudly than she feels, lets her shoulder brush as when she moves past him. He watches her like a man watching a lit fuse creep toward a bomb. She offers him coffee. He takes it. She leaves the cup on the counter and slips into the bedroom, heart pounding. From her nightstand drawer she pulls a small amber bottle. The doctor gave her the pills when she stopped sleeping after the funeral. A quarter of one knocks her out for a full night. She shakes two into her palm and hesitates. Her reflection in the dark window looks back at her, eyes wide and haunted. You want answers, she whispers. You want justice. She drops one pill into his coffee and stares at the way it dissolves. If this feels like betrayal, she tells herself it is because she is betraying the version of herself who believed the world was fair. She carries the mugs back to the living room. He takes his without suspicion, sipping once, twice, the tension in his shoulders easing by degrees. They talk in circles until his words begin to slur. He blinks, frowning, and sets the mug down. You drugged me, he says. His voice is amused, not shocked. The realization sends a jolt of cold through her veins. He knew. Of course he knew. If I wanted to hurt you, you would not be talking right now, she says quietly. I just need your computer. He leans back against the couch, eyes drooping, fighting the pull. You are too late, he murmurs. If I had anything left that could help you, I would have given it to him already. To who, she demands. But his head lolls to the side, the last threads of consciousness slipping away. She stands over him, chest heaving, then turns and moves quickly to the backpack he dropped by the door. Inside she finds a slim laptop encased in battered black. Her fingers tremble as she boots it up, bypassing the first layer of encryption with the key she bribed a security consultant to build for her. There is more waiting, walls inside walls. She works for hours, sweat beading at her temples, curses burning her tongue as each barrier collapses only to reveal another. Finally, a folder opens. Inside is a single file, heavily compressed and triple encrypted. Its name is a date. The date of Evan's death. Her breath stutters. She copies it onto her own drive, then wipes traces of what she has done. When she closes the laptop, her eyes flicker back to Cade. He is sprawled on her couch, head tilted back, throat exposed. The lines of his face are softer in sleep, the sharp edges of suspicion smoothed away. He looks younger. He looks breakable. Sierra stands there for a long moment, a weight pressing against her ribs. Whatever you are hiding, she whispers. I will find it and I will use it to ruin you. Outside, sirens wail somewhere in the distance. Inside, the flicker of the city through her windows paints, shifting light across Cade's face, like ghosts of futures neither of them can yet imagine. 2 days later, Sierra sits in the glass-walled office at the top of Walker Group headquarters, the Manhattan skyline stretched out beyond the windows like a promise she no longer believes in. Her fingers tap restlessly against the sleek surface of her desk as lines of code scroll across her monitor. The file she stole from Cade's laptop sits on her screen like a locked door. She has thrown everything she has at it, every security consultant on retainer, every algorithm the company uses to protect its own vaults. Nothing has cracked it. Until now. The progress bar finally hits 100. A soft chime echoes through the office. Her heart slams against her ribs. The compressed file blossoms into a folder. Inside is a single video. Her mouth goes dry. She plugs in her headphones and clicks play. The image flickers, grainy at first, then sharpens. A small room appears. Concrete walls, a single bare bulb dangling from the ceiling, a metal table between two men. Evan sits on one side, in a wrinkled dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair a mess like he has been pulling at it. Opposite him sits Cade, in a black hoodie, hands clasped loosely, expression dark but focused. Sierra's breath catches. Her brother looks alive. Not like the smug smiling photo at the funeral, not like the framed portraits on the boardroom wall, but alive in a way that aches to look at. He is pacing as the video begins, hands slicing through the air as he talks. If this leak is real, Evan says, Victor has been draining the trust for years. His voice is tight with anger. It is not just the trust, Cade replies. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the transfers to that private bank in Zurich, they all lead back to him. He spins the laptop around, showing Evan something on the screen that Sierra cannot see. But if we go public without enough evidence, he will bury us both. Evan drags his hands through his hair. He already tried to bury me once, he mutters. If he thinks I will blow up his empire, he will not hesitate to make it look like another tragic accident. He stops pacing and looks straight into the camera, though he does not know it is there. For a heartbeat, Sierra feels like he is staring right at her. We cannot go through the front door, he says. We game the system, we stage a crash, fake my death, buy time to take him down from the outside. Cade leans back, lips pressed into a thin line. You are not thinking straight, he says. You fake your death and there is no way back if things go sideways. I do not care, Evan snaps. I care about Sierra, about Mom, about the employees who will lose everything if Victor runs this company into the ground to cover his losses. Sierra's eyes sting. You could run, Cade says quietly. Take your share and disappear. And leave her with him, Evan says. Never. He slams his fist on the table, the sound echoing through the tiny room. We do this my way. Cade exhales slowly. I can override the car systems, he says. Make it look like an accident on paper while you bail out before impact. We record everything, Evan says. The transfers, the code, the threats, all of it. If anything happens to me for real, Sierra has to know the truth. He reaches across the table and grips Cade's forearm. Promise me. The video glitches. The image stutters. Sierra leans closer, fingers digging into the armrests of her chair. The scene resumes. If I am not there to protect her, Evan says, you make sure Victor cannot touch her. Cade looks away. Joe working. I do not do bodyguard work, he says. You do now, Evan replies. You are the only person I trust who is not already on his payroll. The video crackles. Pieces vanish as if someone has taken scissors to the footage, slicing out seconds, then minutes. Suddenly the feed jumps. Evan is gone. Cade sits alone, a hand pressed to his forehead. The glow of the laptop bathes his face in cold light. Under the table, his leg bounces, the only sign of the storm inside him. Idiot, he mutters. You overconfident stupid idiot. There is another jump. The timestamp leaps forward. New footage emerges. The same room, different day. Cade is not alone this time. Victor stands by the door, smiling a razor-thin smile. So noble, Victor says. Throwing yourself on the sword for that reckless boy. Cade's shoulders are rigid. You do not know what you are talking about, he says. I know you rigged his car, Victor says. I know you thought you were saving him. He steps closer, voice dropping. But you did not plan on me finding the back door you left in our systems. He taps a finger against the table. I know who you are, Ghost. The word drips with contempt. You are going to take the fall for this. The video glitches again, audio tearing. When it stabilizes, Victor is closer. Cade's lip is split. Blood stains his hoodie. You will confess, Victor says calmly. In writing, in front of a camera, in any form I deem necessary. And if I do not, Cade asks. Victor smiles. Then I start with your favorite charity. His tone is conversational, almost bored. Those cute little coding camps for kids you keep funding through anonymous transfers. He taps the laptop. I know every single account you have touched. I can make their lives hell. Cade's eyes blaze. You are bluffing, he says. Try me, Victor replies. The timestamp jumps again. The screen tears into static. The file ends. Sierra rips the headphones off, lungs burning. The silence of the office crashes over her. Her reflection stares back from the glossy black of the monitor. Her face is pale, eyes wide, lips parted as if she has been running. Evan is alive. He faked his death. Cade helped him. Victor knows Ghost is Cade. Victor wants Cade to take the fall, to protect his own crimes. A dizzy laugh bubbles up in her throat and dies there. Everything inside her tilts. If this is true, if the video is real, then her hatred has been aimed at the wrong man. Her vows at the funeral, her schemes to get close to Cade, the pill in his coffee, all of it, built on a lie. But the file is incomplete. Key parts are missing. Someone has cut this footage, torn out the pieces that might explain why Evan never told her, why Cade never came to her with the truth. A sharp knock at the office door makes her jump. She slams the laptop shut and shoves it into the drawer, sliding the key home just as Victor steps into the room. "Sierra," he says warmly. "You are not answering my calls." She forces her breathing to even out, forces her face into something approximating calm. "I have been busy," she says. "Walker Group does not stop because we buried my brother." Victor clucks his tongue. "And you think you have to carry the weight yourself," he says. "That is what I admire about you." He strolls to the window and looks out at the city like it belongs to him. "It has been a difficult few weeks," he continues. "The board is nervous. They want to see the company in steady hands." "Your hands." He turns to her, smile smooth. "I think it is time we call a special meeting. We show them you are ready to take your brother's place." The words taste like ash. She pictures Evan in that concrete room, refusing to run. She pictures Cade in the same chair, lips split, eyes defiant as Victor threatens to destroy everything he cares about. Something tightens in her chest. "Let us talk about it later," she says. "I have some things I need to review first." Victor's eyes stray to the closed drawer for a fraction of a second. If he notices the way her hand covers the key, he does not show it. "Of course," he says. "Take all the time you need." He moves toward the door, then pauses, fingers resting on the handle. "Oh," he adds casually. "Be careful who you let into your life now, Sierra. There are people who might use your grief against you." She holds his gaze. "I have already met one," she says. He smiles blandly and leaves, but the warning hangs in the air like smoke. The moment the door closes, Sierra yanks the drawer open, pulling out the laptop. The screen is still warm. Her heart hammers. She cannot stay here. Not with Victor a room away. Not with evidence he would kill to erase in her hands. She grabs her bag, stuffs the laptop inside, and heads for the elevator. By the time she reaches the lobby, the edges of her vision have sharpened into crystal. There is only one person who can tell her if the rest of that video exists. One person who can explain why the brother who claimed to love her chose to let her watch them lower an empty casket into the ground. One person who has been carrying secrets like hand grenades, waiting for the right moment to pull the pin. Cade Rain. She texts the number she swore she would never use, the one that appeared on her screen one night, with the simple message, "If you ever want answers, come find me in person." Now she wants more than answers. She wants the truth, even if it kills what is left of her. They meet at an abandoned pier on the Hudson, the wind whipping off the water, tasting of salt and distant rain. Cade stands near the edge, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, city lights painting sharp angles on his face. "You broke into my laptop," he says without preamble as she approaches. "I did more than that," she says. "I decrypted your insurance policy." His mouth tightens. "You watched it." "Every second," she says. "Half of it," he corrects. "Someone cut that file before you ever saw it." He glances at her bag. "You brought it." She nods, fingers clenching around the strap. "You lied to me," she says. "You stood in my brother's funeral, and let me call you a murderer." "I did not correct you," he says. "That is not the same thing as lying." She laughs, harsh and humorless. "That is exactly what lying is." He flinches. "Sierra," he says. "There are things you do not understand." "Then make me understand," she snaps. "Because right now all I know is that my brother is alive, and you let me mourn him." A voice she recognizes too well cuts through the wind. "That is enough." She spins. A dark van has rolled to a stop at the edge of the pier. The side door slides open. Men in black step out. Victor stands in the doorway, hands in his pockets, smile cool. Her heart drops into her stomach. "You two always did underestimate me," he says. "Did you really think I would not notice when my favorite little hacker started accessing old files from company servers?" Cade's hands flex at his sides. "Get behind me," he murmurs. Two of Victor's men move fast, grabbing Sierra's arms. She struggles, breath ripped from her lungs. "Cade," she gasps. He moves. For a moment he is a blur of motion, an elbow in someone's ribs, a fist at a jaw, a knee connecting with a thigh. One man goes down. Another staggers. There is the metallic glint of a gun. A crack splits the night. Cade jerks as if punched. He collapses to one knee, hand clamped over his side. Blood seeps between his fingers. "Shoot him again, and I will erase you from every system you own," he grinds out. Victor claps slowly. "Still so dramatic," he says. "Get him in the van." Sierra screams as they drag Cade toward the vehicle, his boots scraping across the concrete. She twists against the hands that hold her, nails digging into flesh. Victor, she shouts. What are you doing? He looks at her with feigned disappointment. Cleaning up a mess your brother made, he says. And making sure you stay where I can see you. The door slams shut. The van roars away, headlights slicing through the dark. Sierra is left on the pier, breath ragged, the glow of the city suddenly far away, the laptop with the half-truth heavy in her bag, and the knowledge that the one person who could give her the rest has been taken to a place where Victor intends him never to speak again. The facility sits on the outskirts of the city, hidden behind high concrete walls and layers of legal euphemisms. On paper it is a privately owned security training center, a place where executives can learn how to survive worst-case scenarios. In reality it is Victor's personal prison. Sierra finds it because she has no other choice. She empties her contacts, reaches out to people Evan once warned her never to call unless she was desperate. She is desperate now. Hours bleed into a thin gray dawn as she drives out of Manhattan, gripping the steering wheel until her fingers cramp. The facility looms out of the fog, floodlights cutting through the mist, cameras swiveling lazily atop the walls. She parks in the shadow of a stand of trees and watches the guards at the gate, their movements precise, bored, utterly confident. Her phone buzzes. She glances down. A text from an unknown number floats on the screen. Door on the east side, 2-minute blind spot between camera sweeps, 40 seconds to get past the lock. She exhales. Cade has always been 3 moves ahead, even when bleeding. But he cannot be sending this. Unless someone else has taken up his code. Or unless he managed to plant the instructions before he was dragged inside. Sierra does not have time to parse it. She pulls on the dark jacket she found in the trunk, tucks her hair under a cap, and slips from the car, heartbeat pounding loud in her ears. She moves along the tree line until she reaches the east wall. The door is exactly where the text said it would be, half hidden behind a stack of shipping crates. She presses herself flat against the cold metal and waits. The cameras above sweep right, then left, then stall. The blind spot opens like an invisible door. She forces herself to count to 3, then moves. The keypad beside the door glows faintly. Her fingers fly over the numbers, punching in a pattern that only makes sense if you have seen the kind of code Cade writes, layered with his obsession for prime numbers and repeated digits. The lock releases with a soft click. She slips inside, the door closing behind her with a sound that feels too loud. The hallway smells like disinfectant and stale air. Lights buzz overhead. In the distance, she hears the murmur of voices, the clank of metal. She has been in enough boardrooms to know the layout of facilities like this. Security centers, research labs, anything that requires silence and secrecy follows similar patterns. She moves through them, heart in her throat. At the second intersection, she hears it. A muffled groan. The scrape of something heavy against concrete. Her veins turn to ice. She follows the sound to a heavy steel door. No window, no keypad. Just a simple lock that might as well be a bank vault given how her hands are shaking. She inhales, exhales, then pulls a thin metal tool from her jacket pocket. When she was 14, Evan taught her how to pick locks as a party trick. Now she uses the trick to break into what might be the last place Cade ever sees. The lock yields with a click. The door swings inward. The cell is small, lit by a single fluorescent tube. Cade sits on the floor against the far wall, wrists cuffed to a metal ring above his head. Blood stains his shirt and the concrete beneath him. His face is a map of bruises and dried cuts. His eyes are half closed, lashes clumped with sweat and grime. For a moment, Sierra cannot move. Guilt slams into her. She did this. Her hatred drove her straight into Victor's hands and Cade paid the price. Hey, she whispers. Her voice cracks. Cade. His head lifts, slowly, like it weighs far more than it should. He squints at her, as if convinced she is a hallucination. Sierra, he says. Her name in his mouth sounds like a relief and a warning all at once. This really is the worst idea you have ever had. She chokes out a half sob, half laugh. Yeah, she says. That seems to be a theme. She crosses the room and kneels beside him. The cuffs bite into his wrists. Blue and purple bruises bloom beneath the metal. She fumbles with the keys she stole from a guard, who will wake up with a splitting headache and a story he will never dare tell. The cuffs click open. Cade's arms drop heavily into his lap, muscles trembling with a sudden release. He winces but does not complain. Can you stand? She asks. Not gracefully, he says. His voice is hoarse, but the sarcasm is intact. She slides an arm around his waist and helps haul him to his feet. He sags against her, weight heavier than she expected. You should have stayed in the city, he says. Let me handle this. Handle it from a cell, she snaps. With Victor trying to beat a confession out of you. He tries to shrug and fails. I have been in worse places, he says. I do not care, she says fiercely. I am not leaving you here. His gaze softens, flicking across her face as if memorizing it. You saw the rest of the video, he says. She shakes her head. Only pieces, she says. Enough to know that you and Evan were working together, that Victor has been stealing from the trust, that you tried to protect him. He huffs a breath that might be a laugh. Might be the first time in months anyone has accused me of trying to protect someone, he says. She tightens her grip around his waist. You protected him, she says. You protected those kids in your coding programs. You tried to protect me by keeping me in the dark. She swallows. I was too busy blaming you to see it. He leans his head briefly against her shoulder. There was a second half to that conversation, he says. Evan and I talked about what would happen if something went wrong. What did you decide, she asks. He smiles without humor. That I would be the villain if we needed one, he says. People love neat stories. Genius hacker kills golden boy in tragic accident. Greedy uncle steps up to save the company. It gives the board someone to fear and someone to trust. The words hit her like a slap. You volunteered to be the monster, she says. No one had to volunteer, he says. They were already sharpening the pitchforks. I just made sure they were aimed somewhere useful. She wants to shake him. She wants to kiss him. She wants to scream. That is not noble, she says. That is suicidal. Maybe, he says. Maybe I was tired of watching men like Victor walk away without a scratch. They move down the hall together, Sierra half carrying him. Adrenaline keeps her feet light, keeps her mind spinning ahead. They reach the corridor leading toward the east door just as an alarm blares. Red lights flash. Well, Cade mutters. So much for subtlety. Footsteps thunder somewhere behind them. Sierra's blood runs cold. Keep moving, she orders. He tightens his arm around her shoulders. You are not built for this, he says. You are built for boardrooms and charity galas. I am built for my brother, she snaps. For a company with my family name on it that will not turn into Victor's personal slush fund. And apparently I am built for breaking people out of illegal prisons now. Cade grins despite the pain. Remind me never to underestimate you again, he says. A side door swings open suddenly. A guard barrels into the hall, baton raised. Before Sierra can react, Cade lunges forward with a speed that seems impossible given his injuries. He slams his shoulder into the man's chest, driving him back. They crash into the wall. The guard's head hits concrete. He crumples. Cade sways, bracing a hand against the wall, breathing hard. Stop doing that, she says. Doing what, he asks. Throwing yourself in front of everything, she says. Bullets, guards, my bad decisions. He smiles faintly. Somebody has to, he says. They reach the exit as more alarms shriek. Sierra punches in the code again with shaking fingers. The door flies open. Cold morning air rushes in. They stumble out into the gray dawn, racing for the line of trees where her car waits like a miracle. Bullets ping off the concrete behind them. Sierra ducks, dragging Cade down with her until they tumble behind the cover of the car. He grunts as his shoulder hits the ground. You are insane, he gasps. And not nearly as fragile as you look. She fumbles with the keys, throws herself into the driver's seat, and hauls him into the passenger side. Gravel spits from under the tires as she slams the car into gear. They fly down the access road, the facility shrinking in the rearview mirror. Only when they hit the highway does she let her shoulders slump. Her hands still grip the wheel so hard that her knuckles ache. Where do we go, she asks. Somewhere Victor will never think to look, Cade says. Somewhere Evan has been hiding, while we all dance on his grave. He closes his eyes, blood drying in rust-red patterns on his shirt, and murmurs an address that sounds like coordinates to a different life. The safe house turns out to be an old beach house 3 hours outside the city, weathered shingles and peeling paint, the Atlantic stretching out behind it like a gray endless wall. Evan is waiting inside. For a long moment, Sierra stands in the doorway, wind from the ocean whipping her hair around her face, sand grinding under her shoes. Her brother stares at her from the worn couch, alive and solid and so familiar that her lungs forget how to work. Sierra, he says. His voice cracks on her name. He looks thinner, beard scruffing his jaw, eyes ringed with shadow, but he is here. He is not ashes scattered in the river. He is not a plaque on a wall. He is alive. Something inside her snaps. She crosses the room in 3 strides and punches him hard in the shoulder. He yelps. What the hell, he sputters. She hits him again, this time weaker, tears blurring her vision. You let me bury an empty box, she shouts. You let me stand in front of everyone and talk about how you were the best part of this family, while you were hiding in some seaside shack. He catches her wrists, holding them gently. He looks like he wants to pull her into a hug, and also like he thinks he has lost the right. I am sorry, he says. The words sound too small for the damage they cover. I thought I could fix it before you had to know. You thought wrong, she says. You thought leaving me in the dark was protection, but all it did was give Victor room to twist everything and turn me against the one person who was actually on your side. She jerks her chin toward Cade, who leans against the door frame, watching them with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Do you know what I did to him? She demands. Evan's gaze flicks to the bruises on Cade's face, the blood on his shirt, the way he sways on his feet. Guilt floods his features. Cade lifts a hand. This is not her fault, he says. Victor would have taken a swing at me sooner or later. Evan grimaces. This is on me, he says. I pressured you into the plan. I underestimated Victor. I did not tell Sierra until it was too late. You both made stupid choices, Sierra says. And now we fix them. She pulls free of Evan's grip and paces the small room, energy crackling under her skin. We have enough on him to take him down, she says. Financial records, leaked audio, the half of that video I saw, plus whatever else you two have been collecting. Not enough, Cade says. Victor has friends in high places. The kind who make evidence disappear. Evan nods slowly. We need something public, he says. Something so big and so loud that no one can sweep it under a rug. The board, Sierra says. Her mind sharpens. The shareholders. She sees it in her head. The sleek conference room high above Manhattan, full of men and women who care about two things. Money and reputation. We call a special meeting, she says. We tell Victor we are backing his bid to become permanent CEO. We make him feel safe, overconfident. We let him walk himself right into a spotlight he cannot control, then we rip the mask off. Evan's mouth curves slowly. That is my girl, he says softly. Cade watches her with a look that makes her cheeks heat. If we do this, he says, I need access to every account Victor has ever touched. His private servers, his shadow books, the devices he keeps off the grid. We will not get another shot. Sierra nods. You will have it, she says. I will use every ounce of authority my last name still carries. She points a finger at both men. But we do this my way. No more secrets, no more half-truths, no more noble sacrifices decided without me. I am done being the girl everyone lies to in the name of protection. Evan raises both hands in surrender. Fair, he says. Cade inclines his head. Agreed, he says. They spend the next 48 hours building a plan. Sierra calls the board, her voice cool and composed as she frames Victor as the stabilizing force the company needs. She plays the grieving heiress reluctantly willing to share the load. The board eats it up. Evan digs through old files, dusting off trails he and Cade once followed, connecting them to new patterns of theft and laundering. Cade sits at the scarred kitchen table with a laptop and 3 burner phones, fingers flying, dismantling the digital walls Victor has built around his secrets. By the time the day of the meeting arrives, they have a mountain of evidence stacked against a man who thinks he is untouchable. The Walker Group boardroom has never felt more like a stage. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame the skyline. A long polished table gleams under the recessed lighting. The board members shuffle papers and murmur to each other as they take their seats. Victor stands at the head of the table, a picture of confidence in a tailored suit, silver hair perfectly in place. Sierra sits at his right hand, wearing a fitted black dress, and the calm expression she reserved for high-stakes negotiations. Evan waits in a side room down the hall, ready to step in when the time is right. Cade sits in a small server room on the 33rd floor, surrounded by humming machines, his laptop plugged into the main projector feed. No one knows he is there. Victor clears his throat. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he begins. As you know, these have been challenging weeks for our family and our company. He pauses, letting his gaze rest on Sierra in a show of protective concern. I have done my best to provide stability in the wake of my nephew's tragic death. He does not blink. The light tastes of ash even in Sierra's ears. Today I am asking for your formal support, he says. A vote to confirm me as permanent chief executive officer. He smiles. You have all seen the numbers. Under my guidance, Walker Group has weathered the storm. There is a murmur of agreement. Hands flip through reports. Stock charts flash on tablets. Sierra lets them have their moment. Then she stands. Before we vote, she says, I would like to show you something. Victor turns to her, frowning faintly. Sierra, he says softly. We agreed we would not burden them with too much more today. She meets his gaze, smile razor sharp. I think you will find this enlightening, she says. She nods toward the technician by the wall. Can we bring up the presentation? On the 30-foot screen, the company logo appears, then vanishes as the feed cuts abruptly. A different image flickers to life. Concrete walls. A metal table. Two men sitting across from each other. The board members lean forward, confused. Victor's face drains of color. His composure slips for the first time Sierra has ever seen. Sierra, he says sharply. Turn that off. Her heart pounds. Her palms are slick. She clasps her hands behind her back so no one can see them shake. I think we should watch, she says. It concerns our company's leadership. On the screen, Evan paces, talking about the trust fund, about Victor's theft. A few board members gasp. Others glance at Victor with raised brows. When Victor appears on the footage, smiling that same thin smile, the room temperature seems to drop. They watch him threaten Cade. They watch him brag about discovering Ghost's identity. They watch him lay out his plan to turn Evan's faked death into a weapon. Voices rise around the table. Someone swears. Someone else demands to know if this is a joke. Victor lurches toward the nearest control panel. Cut the feed, he barks. In the server room, Cade smiles grimly and overrides the command. The footage keeps rolling. New clips appear. Audio of Victor's phone calls with bankers in Zurich. Screenshots of wire transfers from company accounts to shell corporations. A recording of Victor telling a subordinate to make sure the car accident looks convincing. Finally, the screen shifts to a live feed. Evan steps into the boardroom through the side door. For a moment, the room forgets how to breathe. Evan, someone gasps. He is supposed to be dead, another whispers. He walks to the head of the table, standing on the opposite side from Victor. He looks exhausted, but his voice is firm. I am very much alive, he says. And I have been watching my uncle steal from this company, and from our family for years. Victor's face twists. You ungrateful little bastard, he hisses. You were nothing without me. You were nothing before this company, Evan replies. And you will be nothing after the law is done with you. Sirens wail faintly from the street below. Sierra glances at her watch. Right on time. She had sent the evidence to the district attorney that morning, along with an anonymous tip about an urgent board meeting where the suspect would be presenting. Two uniformed officers step into the room, as if answering her thoughts. Victor Walker, one of them says. You are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. The boardroom erupts. Voices shout. Chairs scrape. Victor gapes at the officers, then at Sierra, then at Evan. His mask slips completely. Do you have any idea what you have done? He snarls. You have destroyed this family. Sierra steps closer, her heels clicking on the polished floor. You destroyed it a long time ago, she says quietly. We are just cleaning up the wreckage. They cuff him and lead him away. The board watches, eyes wide, some horrified, some calculating how to survive this scandal, with their portfolios intact. Sierra turns to face them. I will not pretend this is not a crisis, she says. But I am done letting men like him hide behind our name. Were there signs we should have seen? One director asks weakly. Yes, she says. And we did not. We will do better. We will rebuild what he broke, transparently, legally, together. She feels Cade's gaze on her even though he is not in the room. Through the cameras he watches Victor taken away, watches Sierra stand in the wreckage of their carefully balanced lies and choose truth instead. The board votes. It is not unanimous. Change never is. But when the dust settles, Sierra Walker is the new chief executive officer. She walks out of the boardroom not as the grieving girl everyone underestimated, but as a woman who has walked through the fire and come out the other side with her heart singed, but still beating. The tide is low when Sierra reaches the beach house again, sky streaked in shades of orange and purple as the sun sinks toward the horizon. The air smells like salt and smoke from a distant bonfire. Waves roll in lazy rhythm against the shore. The chaos of the boardroom, the flashing cameras outside the building, the barrage of calls from investors and press, all feel far away here. She kicks off her heels at the edge of the deck and walks barefoot across the cool sand. Cade stands near the water, jeans rolled to his calves, shirt sleeves pushed up, the wind tugging at his hair. He looks smaller without the shadows of the city around him, but no less solid. When she reaches him, he does not turn right away. They watch the waves a moment in silence. You did it, he says finally. We did it, she corrects. You cracked his accounts. Evan gathered the extra proof. I played the grieving heiress turned righteous CEO. Team effort. He smiles faintly. Still not sure how I feel about the world knowing I exist now, he says. Ghosts do not usually like public trials. You are not on trial, she says. Victor tried to frame you and he failed. You saved my brother. You saved our company. He shrugs. I hacked some accounts and took a few punches, he says. Evan did the brave part. She stares at him. You have the worst self-image I have ever seen, she says. You volunteered to be the villain, remember? You carried my hatred like it belonged to you. His jaw tightens. You were hurting, he says. I deserved some of it. No, she says firmly. You did not. She steps in front of him, forcing him to look at her. His gray eyes are tired, wary, and so full of things he has never said that it steals her breath. I drugged you, she says. I stole your files. I called you a murderer to your face at my brother's funeral. I let Victor feed my grief until I could not see straight. I hurt you. He shakes his head. You were grieving, he says. You were drowning and I was the nearest thing to hold on to. Even if that meant you held me under for a while. She winces. That is not funny, she says. Not supposed to be, he replies. He catches her gaze and holds it. You asked me once why I was at the funeral, he says. I told you I owed him. It was more than that. He asked me to watch out for you. The wind picks up, whipping her hair into her face. She pushes it back impatiently. And you did, she says. You watched me aim my pain at you and you let me. Because you thought it would keep me from going after the real monster alone. That is not protection, Cade. That is martyrdom. He laughs softly. Maybe I do not know the difference, he says. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out something small. For a moment it glints in the fading light, catching her eye. A ring. Not ornate, not dripping with diamonds. Just a simple band fashioned from a piece of metal that seems faintly familiar. He holds it between his fingers, expression suddenly nervous, which is almost more shocking than watching her uncle dragged away in handcuffs. What is that, she asks. A mistake I made 2 years ago, he says. Back when I thought I could be something other than a ghost. I took a piece of the first chip I used to break into Walker Group systems and had it reshaped. He looks at the ring, then at her. I told myself it was a reminder not to get attached to anything inside your world. That if I wore it, I would remember to keep my distance. He smiles crookedly. Turns out I am terrible at my own rules. He takes her hand, palm up. Her pulse stutters. You do not owe me anything, he says. You have every right to want me gone. To build a new life without the man who spent a year letting you hate him. But if there is any part of you that believes I can be more than the mistakes I made, if there is any tiny corner of your heart that is willing to give this a shot, then I want to try. His voice drops. I want a life where I do not have to hide in server rooms and alleyways, where I can sit across from you at a dinner table without worrying that someone will put a bullet in your back for being near me. He swallows. I want to stand beside you when the fire dies down and figure out what it means to rebuild from ashes. He slides the ring gently onto her finger. It fits as if it was meant for her all along. Warmth floods her chest, mingled with the sharp ache of memory. She thinks of the girl who stood in a church with a police report in her hands and vowed to destroy him. She thinks of the woman who walked into a private prison with a stolen key and refused to leave without him. She lifts her gaze to his. You are an idiot, she says softly. An infuriating, self-sacrificing, emotionally constipated idiot. He huffs out a laugh. Accurate, he says. But, she continues, heart pounding, you are my idiot. I am done letting fear and grief tell me who I am allowed to love. I am done punishing you for choices we both made in the dark. Her eyes sting. I cannot promise this will be easy, she says. I cannot promise we will not screw up again. But I can promise I will not walk away when it gets hard. I could not hate you even when I tried my hardest. He exhales like someone finally letting go of a breath they have been holding for years. That sounds dangerously like a yes, he says. It is a yes, she replies. He steps closer, close enough that she can feel the heat of him, close enough that the ocean and the sky and the rest of the world blur at the edges. Good, he whispers. Because I am not sure I would have known how to let you go. He leans in. This kiss is nothing like the ones she imagined in the middle of her anger, the ones where she could not decide if she wanted to bite or bruise. It is slow, careful, full of apology and promise. The wind tugs at their clothes, waves crashing behind them like applause. When they break apart, her forehead rests against his. She laughs, breathless. Do you think they will ever stop talking about us? She asks. The girl who tried to destroy the man she ended up marrying. Let them talk, he says. Let them write their neat stories. He brushes a thumb over the ring on her finger. We will know the truth. That we walked through hell, burned down the lies, and chose each other in what was left. She smiles, the sound of the ocean filling the spaces in her chest that grief once hollowed out. Behind them, the old beach house stands like a battered witness to their mess. Ahead of them, the future is as uncertain and vast as the sea, but for the first time in a long time, she is not afraid to step into it. Fire has a way of clearing the ground, of making room for new things to grow where the old ones turn to ash. Sierra laces her fingers with cades and walks toward the water, letting the waves wash over their feet, letting the tide pull the worst of the past out to sea. Embers glow hottest just before they cool. Tonight, under a sky painted in colors that look like endings and beginnings at once, their love burns bright, not as a blaze that destroys, but as a steady light that guides them out of the abyss and into whatever comes next.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.